of you in this side of the room going here before. Some of you on the side of the room have been here before. Quick, what I did in simpler terms. When it's your turn, meaning you number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or 14. We have quite a few tonight. We will call you up, come to the podium, press the button so the red light lights. Just press it once, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us why you're here. Remember, you are all here for dimensional relief. You are all here for a variance. Then you'll explain yourself. The board will ask you some questions if we have any. Then I will say, is there anybody in the audience to speak in favor or in opposition? I say this every meeting, I will say it again. The best applications are the ones where you, who are asking for a variance, have already gone to your neighbors, explained to them what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if they don't like it, you come to some compromise before you get here. At any rate, if there are neighbors in opposition, which obviously there are this evening, they will come up and they'll speak, and then you also have an opportunity to come back up to the podium and address that. Now, as far as this side of the room, so obviously you're going to get a chance to speak tonight, obviously. But if you've already spoken and you've said something obvious last month, we have your name and address and what you said in the minutes. It's all recorded. I'm going to ask you, please don't come up to the podium again unless you have something new to add. And just add that something new. We don't need to rehear what you already said. Everybody will get an opportunity. A couple of other things that I'd like to say before I continue on is we've had some confusion lately that I know about. It's probably gone on for more than just lately on building permits, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So if you are cleaning out or you're building an addition and you have a dumpster or a storage unit, you need a permit for that. And you're not supposed to have it on your front yard. It's supposed to be on solid ground like a driveway. So a lot of people don't know about that. And they'll say, well, how are we supposed to know about it? I can't answer that for you, other than having Carla photostat the zoning board book and having it here during meetings, which I might ask her to do. We just don't have that tonight. My point is, short, and I said this last month, short of banging a nail in a piece of wood, if you're putting in windows, and I don't know all the rules, I don't know all the zoning laws, but if you're putting in windows, if you're building a shed, if you're tearing a shed and you're putting up a new shed, you say, well, I don't need a building permit, I'm just putting another shed right where I took. Do yourself a favor, go to the building department or make a phone call. Find out, do I need a building permit? Because chances are the answer is always going to be, yes, you do. If in fact you need a variance and you built something, and then your neighbor and the building, and oh, look at this, you need a variance, and now you have to go to this. We don't look too on people that come to us for after the fact, because as far as I'm concerned, you're the property owner. You need to know what you need. So please, I could go on forever, but we have a and people are already like, oh God. Just please call the building department if you have a question. This decision whether we approve you or we don't approve you. And remember, everything gets approved. Will be filed with the city clerk. Once the petition is filed with the clerk, the 20 appeal period, and Paula will explain that to you of evening. In compliance with the open meeting law, this hearing is also being recorded by the clerk. Please speak directly and only speak at the podium to ensure you are on record, and that's the last. You can have as many times up here as you need, but do out how upset you are from your seat. Just come to the podium. Okay, now we're going to number 1 is a continued application of Arlene Adams. And 229 Wall Street.
No. I live on Wall Street. I'm here to convert my house to a 2-family. Need relief for the side yard and lot size.
Okay, so just summary here. Went for a site visit April 6th. We toured the property. Had some concerns with parking and structures that were on the neighbor's property. We asked you to provide a revised plot plan, which you have provided, showing the vinyl shed to be removed, and it was, and a plot plan showing that the patio should not be on anyone else's property, and that was done. No parking in front, and I have noticed that. Thank you very much. And parking in the back with the plot plan showing 4 spots. So you have submitted a clean lot land, no parking in front, the 4 spots out back, and the structures to be removed were removed. And it looks like, my friend, you did a very nice job with this.
Thank you. Still cleaning.
So any other questions or comments by the board? Anyone in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
With the, could you put a condition that no parking be in?
So we'll make a motion to approve conditioned upon all parking being the 4 spots are out back, and there should be no parking in the front on Lowell Street.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. You may speak. You may come up, honey. Honey. I can't believe I just said that. And I'm not going to call you ma'am either, because I don't like to be called ma'am. So, hello, miss. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Margaret Dupre. I live at 5 Castle Circle, and I wish to speak in opposition. Mr. and Mrs. Adams and my husband and I spoke in opposition. Our reasons were that 229 Street was actually a large house, undersized, not the rest of the neighborhood. That Castle Circle was to absorb any added congestion, parking, noise. Variance was granted. Came to only worse than expected. Years, excuse me, we have experienced parking with cars and trucks. The noise of motorcycles, cars, motorcycles appeared on, even an engine taken from behind a frame street. In addition, for years, a dilapidated old truck was left away on the Adams property. When Mr. Adams closed his business ago, it got worse. There were more cars in the street. Equipment was brought in and stored on the property. At least one shed was constructed, and parking with more truck cars habitually parked in the circle. In essence, a large part of the circle became Mr. Adams's exclusive domain. Very often, the house was a scramble to shuffle cars and move hard so that there's enough parking available. At the time, one of our neighbors expressed his concern with the Adamses. All these stuff and they were told that everything would be moved to his son's property eventually. Obviously, that never happened. Parking at Castle Circle is extremely difficult. It's almost like an alley, you know, on the back bay where parking and garbage is picked up in the back. Before the last appeals meeting, there were ordinarily 3 commercial vehicles, 2 trucks and a detailing trailer parked on the street, and 1 car parked on the Adams property. There's also a plow somewhere, which I know will show up come winter. After the last meeting, Mr. Adams moved the detailing trailer onto his property with the 2 trucks still parked on the street. The end of our circle is very congested. I live at 5. 3 and 9 have accessory living units. So there's a lot of parking at the end of that street. Number 9 have 5 cars parked. And I mean, that's how many cars they have, but they have 5 cars parked. 3 in the front, 1 on either side in their driveway. So if there are now 4 spaces for Mr. and Mrs. Adams and the 2 tenants, 2 potential tenants, where does everybody else move? You know, because there were still the trucks and the detailing trailer, etc. Mr. Adams told me at the time that one of the reasons he was applying for a permit was so he could move his brother in because he has health problems, which he can already do because he does have an existing file. And another reason that the Adamses have given is that a 2-family would be more valuable when it is time to sell their house. And maybe. But what about the rest of us? In our end of Castle Circle, 6 houses from 5 through 17, 4 of the owners are in their 70s and their 80s. If we have to sell, are we going to have difficulty either because of the appearance of 229 Lowell Street or with the parking issues? What will the effect be? A slower sale or a price? In retrospect, I find the wording of the variance that was given for the Fowler in 1994 particularly ironic, and I quote, that its design and appearance will not be injurious to the established or future character of the vicinity and the neighborhood. That did not happen. That did not prove true. And there is no reason to believe that granting another variance would turn out any better. So I thank you for listening. I also have pictures, but I don't know. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Carla, excuse me. What's the weight limit on commercial vehicles?
We've never had 3 commercial vehicles. Oh, she said we had 3.
You are allowed one commercial vehicle. I'll check the weight, but the other is, it's a public street. We have no control over parking or not parking on a public street. You certainly can't do business on the street, like work on cars or anything like that. But let me check the gross vehicle weight.
So, do you want to go back up to the podium? Oh, okay. Sorry, we have we have somebody else that wants to speak. Come on up.
Ordinance 9 to allow commercial vehicle, the gross vehicle 12,000 pounds.
All right. Mike Sturgeon, Castle. Low street parking that already poses a challenge to the Republic trash trucks and oil delivery trucks on my Castle Circle cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac half-loop on which I live is home to numbers 9, 11, and 13 on Castle Circle. It also includes the backyard parking lot for 229 Lowell Street. Numbers 5 and 15 on Castle Circle border this half-loop on its edges. This half-loop currently is often crowded with parked vehicles when the Republic truck arrives on Tuesday mornings. This is because 3 driveways are often full and 5 or 6 vehicles are often parked on the half-loop at right angles to the curbing. The perpendicular street parking shrinks the diameter of the half-loop from about 90 feet to about 60 feet. So the 35-foot-long Republic trash truck currently has to zigzag around street-parked vehicles to provide their pickup services. An oil truck has less of a problem delivering only to one home. In particular, the 4 currently open parallel parking spaces at number 13, 15, and 5 are of critical use to the Republic truck drivers. They drive directly through these spaces as they enter and exit the half-loop. If those spaces were occupied, the Republic trash trucks probably could not enter or leave the loop. The trash truck also uses empty space on the street close to a fire hydrant near the backyard of 229 Lowell Street to turn and pick up collectibles. Granting the 2-family variance at 229 Lowell Street could cause critical trash truck entering, turning, and exiting spaces to be occupied for the following reasons. The Adams family might propose 4 side-by-side on-site parking spaces contained in their backyard. They might keep an on-site trailer parked on their lot on its western edge where it is now. They might park their SUV next to the trailer and park their 2 pickup trucks in 2 of the critical parallel parking spaces on the street next to the number 5 Castle Circle. Any new tenants at 229 Lowell Street would then have 2 on-site parking spaces and room on the street to park 2 extra vehicles perpendicularly on the Castle Circle loop near the fire hydrant. Such new parking would block Republic's trucks' routine exit and turnaround paths. Let me just finish. Any visitors to the loop would then have to park on the street near numbers 13 or 15. That would block Republic's trucks' routine entrance path to the half loop. Such new parking could add 6 street parked vehicles to the current impediment to vital service trucks. The Republic trash trucks, especially, could be blocked from entering, turning around, and exiting the Castle Circle cul-de-sac where I live. For that reason, I oppose the requested variance at 229 Lowell Street.
Thank you, sir.
You want a copy?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything?
Reimer Adams, 229 Lowell Street. In my defense, I've never parked in front of any of these people's houses. I park in front of my house, which is the back of my house. And I've also created 4-car parking, which you've asked me to do, enlarging the backyard so there's parking. Currently, I'm in the process of putting a fence up, working on my shed, so the cars are parked in front of my driveway in the street. The cars, the trucks coming in and out of the neighborhood have absolutely no problem making that circle. It's a very large circle, and it has no offense to them. I don't park in front of their houses. I've created more parking. I'm parked in front of my driveway because I'm using my driveway currently to do my fence, paint, put up sections of fence, and I'm going to vinyl side the back of the shed that was blocked from the structure that was in front of it. And once that's done, my trucks will be pulled in the driveway. That's number one. Number two, I have 1 commercial vehicle, not 3. I have a pickup truck that I drive daily, and I have a commercial pickup truck only because it's the weight size of it. It has a plow on it that I use to plow for the city of Peabody. However, I've already made a decision to get rid of that and cut back to 1 truck for plowing. I just haven't gotten rid of it. I've gotten rid of everything else that you've asked me to do. There's not a problem parking out there, not that I'm aware of. And if anybody in the neighborhood had a problem, I would hope that they could come to me and explain it to me, because I don't have a problem with anybody in that neighborhood. In fact, I plow all these guys' driveways.
Just for a point of clarity, it seems like there might be some confusion. These 4 spots that are going to be on the Castle Circle side, they're on Ms. Adams' property. So these are not separate. We didn't create, or no one created separate parking spots for on a public way or a city way. It seems like the biggest issue here might be parking problem. However, the parking that's our jurisdiction for the zoning board is parking that's on someone's property. We have no ability to restrict or otherwise change parking on a public way like Castle Circle or any other street in the city that's a public way. So I just want to make sure there's no confusion that this plan is not granting the ability to park. It's not carving out parking spots on a public way. It's carving out parking spots on the personal property.
Okay, so hearing nobody else, okay. There is a motion to approve with the condition of no parking to be allowed in the front of the house on Lowell Street. That was your motion, correct?
Yes, that was the motion. I'll move that. Well, first I'll remove to close the public hearing.
Go ahead.
And now I'll remake the motion to approve with the condition that there shall be no parking in front of 229 Lowell Street on the Lowell Street side.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's right, Barry wasn't here for all of it. You have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We are now going on to number 2, And I do not believe 4 Newhall Place, anybody is here from 4 Newhall Place? We need a motion to continue till September 11th.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. So 4 Newhall Place will be continued till September 11th. Oh, I forgot to say that. I was supposed to say that right away. That due to some work, I did tell you there would be work done to help the acoustics in Wigan Auditorium. So the zoning board meeting that was scheduled for September 18th will not be held. However, it will be held September 11th. So we do not meet in August. Our next meeting will be September 11th. I need to take a vote on that. Vote to approve the change in the meeting date.
I'll make a motion to approve the change in the meeting, next scheduled meeting to September 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 3 is a continuance of 0 Pearl Street. You need to read the continuance into the record. Do you have it?
The following is being read into the record. It's a letter dated July 13th, 2023 to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding 0 Pearl Street. Dear Mrs. McGrath, the above captioned matter is scheduled for hearing on July 17th, 2023. Please accept this letter as my request to continue this matter to the date of September 18th.
11th.
Yeah, it says 18th on the letter, so I'm just, and then, which has been changed by the board to September 11th, 2023. And there's been a reason, and that's signed by Attorney Jack Kelty.
To
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4 is also a continued application of Hoyle Construction. We need to read.
And for the record, this is a letter dated June 29th, 2023, from Attorney Jack Kelty to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding 68 Prospect Street. Dear Mrs. McGrath, I represent Hoyle Construction Company, the applicant for zoning relief at the above captioned address. Please accept this letter as my clients request that this matter be continued to the meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals on September 18th, which we have just moved to September 11th, 2023. Letter is signed by Attorney Jack Kelty.
I'll make a motion to continue.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we're on to 0 Newbury Street. And before we do that, I need a motion to accept the following correspondences. 6/12/23, Turner letter in opposition. 5/9/23, Commissioner St. Pierre's memo. 5/5/23, auto turn figure plan. 7/11/23, submitted waste site and reportable releases info. 7/11/23, submitted site plan with surrounding lots. 7/11/23, submitted sun program.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Those are accepted. And now we would like Attorney Kelty to present.
Not really, though. Thank you. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street here in Peabody, and I appear on behalf of the applicant with respect to seeking variance by way of summary. We were here at your last meeting on June 12th. At that meeting, we attempted to set a meeting with the Huntington Wood. That failed. We have agreed upon a date of 25 p.m. at the house on July 7th. Non-public, non-conversant, if you will, meeting at the site itself. There were number of things presented in terms of, we pointed out where our setbacks were that we were requesting. There were three things that this variance requests, forms of relief that we're asking, which is our acreage, second of which is our density, is 2 units per acre, and the third portion of our variance is setbacks as it relates to the Peterson property. We had been on site, pointed to various areas. I have given to Carla McGrath this evening a plan that we did forward to you folks electronically. These are 11 by 17s. They demonstrate two things, one of which is where our setbacks are in relation to the Peterson property. It does show the area of land that we in fact carved out for the benefit and presented to Mr. Peterson. That bump out in what used to be our sideline is where our request for setback is triggered. We have the plan that I've presented this evening, which is for your, it's at a size that you can read when you get home and before we're back here. It demonstrates also that when we stood on the site, we were able to look toward Huntington Wood. We were able to see how much was clear cut. There was concern on the part of the board as to whether we had taken down all of the trees on our property right up to the property line. I can say that we are close to the property line with respect to trees that were removed. None of the trees that were removed were on anyone else's property. And the plan that was presented electronically and this evening demonstrates that zoning requires that we add an additional layer of plantings. And on the second sheet of that plan, we do show, though, the new plantings that are going to be added between our driveway and on the slope that goes to Huntington Wood. And it would be my suggestion that those trees, it would be an appropriate condition also, that those trees be non-deciduous, conifer of some nature, such that we would be able to. We did note that this evening we'll also present a couple of plans, photographs, one of which was taken in the winter and the second of which is taken very recently, and it was the same view that the board was able to see. But there was concern expressed that during the winter months, would people be able to see through from one building to the next? And I think that our planting scheme and the intent to provide conifers or non-deciduous trees and landscape will be of great assistance to our neighbors at Huntington Wood. It will make it virtually impossible to see us when we finish. We also, there was concern about how we were going to handle our runoff. We explained a series of collection areas that are on the site. Essentially, this proposal provides that any stormwater runoff be handled on our site, and overflow then heads toward collection areas that are on property not owned by my client this evening. And as such, we are having a meeting with, which is actually tomorrow, with Commissioner St. Pierre and Bob Langley, so that we can assure that our efforts to prepare the site for work to be done by this applicant eventually upon our hopeful approval, that work will be done in a manner that will not impact our neighbors on Winona, at Cardigan, and at Huntington Wood. In general, the water flows from south to north, in the sense that from the water on this property will run from the Huntington Wood end of the property toward Winona Street. So the meeting tomorrow will be covering details such as there is a temporary basin that collects water on the site, and as we remove that and fill that for further uses, we are preparing for handling of that water with a Caltech system that is going to be built on the remaining land and adjacent to the Trammell Crow project, which you folks had approved. So we are also endeavoring to satisfy concerns that were exhibited by the board as to where our whether we would meet the parking requirements. We are actually in excess. We're providing parking in excess of that which is required in a CCRC zoning district, and we also are providing parking that is in excess of the parking required in the residential overlay district. So, and we're not asking for any relief from parking. And with that, I would like Rick Salvo he prepared a couple of plans, and he can just show you what those exhibits are and how we, yes, he's right behind me.
Oh, sure.
So you can take your microphone and walk. If you want to talk, you can hold the microphone if you'd like.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Rick Salvo with Engineering Alliance, office at 194 Central Street in Saugus, Mass. Just to sort of refresh your memory, Route 1 is down the bottom of the site. Access to the site is in between, or just south of south of the Honeydew. Come up through an access easement into the 4+ acre piece of land. The proposed building has 146 units. It has 168 parking spaces, where 100 spaces are required. Spaces will be under balance of the 71 will be on the surface lot outside of the, as were zoning requirements that require landscape other than in wooded area exists Huntington Woods and the proposed. We're about 130 white pine as part of this project. About 30 will be densely stacked in this area here, about 10 feet on center. So that will fill the gap between the existing buffer that already exists there and then this area here, which is already currently cleared. There'll be no need to do any more clearing other than what's already been cleared out on site. So we'll be adding a significant amount of landscaping in this area here, which will create a good, solid green wall between this site and the Huntington Woods site. Keep in mind, the Huntington Woods site is uphill of us, so there's really no chance that stormwater from this site could extend up to a Huntington Woods site. This site will be completely curbed. As Attorney Kelty mentioned, there'll be a series of deep sump basins drained to an infiltration facility in this area here. This site was already designed for a storage facility and review. We did the soil testing, drainage calculations for that particular. We know that that will accommodate this site. It's almost identical footprint of what was permitted prior. So that's the change. We did submit an auto process. There's a 24-foot wide roadway that extends all on this property, which is why the auto the board saw it work, because it's, you know, it's the same as driving main streets in Peabody. It's basically the same size. The proposal, the addition of the plans, again, landscaping, real heavy to make a green wall between us and Huntington Woods, so there's no visual or no way to view this property. This property looking out towards Huntington Woods or property. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board has at this point.
The trees that you're proposing, they'll be how tall?
Probably about 10 feet
Upon planting? they'll
upon
be-
planting. $10 feet, probably minimum 2.5 to 3 inch caliper.
Can I have a question. So, correct me if I'm right. Do we? I read that you underneath
Parking. So parking will be building is elevated about 10 feet off the ground. So the parking will be underneath the building, not in a garage underneath the building, but
Was
underneath
it
the
ever
building.
proposed to be in a garage underneath?
No.
Okay, so will there be any blasting?
We are of the opinion there will perhaps be some. I was looking at a plan today that showed some areas of ledge, so there's a very strong possibility
then.
there will be
So yes.
some, and we would comply with all of the fire department regulations. One other point I'd love to share with the board is that the owners of the billiard parlor are in the process of applying for a demolition permit, and that building is going to come down.
The building will come down and all the debris will be taken away?
Correct.
Yeah, building will be removed, debris removed, and the site would be continue to be monitored in accordance with the DEP regulations that pertain to that site, and that's a link that I had sent to the board.
Board want
Question two. I don't have the full. What's the height of the building?
The proposal is 61 feet is allowed.
Additionally, what's the proposed unit count on the top floor?
Some odd, so it's yeah, about 37 units.
Do we have that breakdown somewhere?
Through the chair while we're waiting, I think it's been made pretty clear by some members of the board that really the hang-up is the size. And I think we were very clear to ask you to please consider a reduction in the size. Through all your talks, has that been breached or has it been broached? Have you considered, or have you considered reducing the size of the project? Because something should go. You satisfied all my needs, but except for one, a lot of activity there. You've done a great thing, wonderful thing. You've done a great traffic road, but there's going to be a lot of cars. I just think the size, when we were live it, 2 pounds of garbage in a bag, and that's the only thing in my mind is, yes, something there, yes, it's a good project, but is it too much in there right now?
Jeff Smitlana, our company, is able to speak to that issue.
Hi, good evening. We certainly have looked at that. We've sized the project in a way that it works, that it's viable. We've explained a little bit about our housing model for seniors. It's a very service-intense lifestyle for our residents, which means there's a lot of infrastructure in terms of facilities that we have for those residents, and staffing and programs, a bus that we have to offset some of the traffic limitations. So those fixed costs need to be spread over a certain base. So going lower than 146 significantly just doesn't work. The model just isn't feasible. We think actually the project fits rather well onto that site. We've incorporated a lot of the traditional smart growth strategies that really encourages you to do denser development, to be more vertical, to do development where existing development is already occurring. Those are all smart growth strategies that encourages you to stay away from undeveloped areas, go into areas where you already have commercial and retail and a mix of other uses in terms of multifamily and single family. We think it checks all those boxes of everything that the EPA encourages you to do when they ask you to undertake smart growth strategies. So we feel like it fits rather nicely on that site. Our residents, as seniors, are off-peak travelers. They're not out there at that intersection at 8 in the morning or at 5 in the evening. Most of our residents, or many of our residents, don't drive. We have a shuttle bus that takes them to shopping and to appointments and to events. So I think a lot of the concerns that may exist with a traditional type development are really mitigated with our type of housing, and the fact that we need this number of units to support the level of services is just a reality that we have with this project.
Thank you. I guess what I'm going to say is yes, I agree with you, okay? But as a standalone project, maybe that is perfect for that site as it sits right now. But you're asking us to put that right next to just an approved 100 and some, I don't even remember, 180 something units that we've already approved. So it's not a standalone project that fits nicely into what all the experts say will be great. It's a project you're putting right next to another 180 unit project. Does that make the fit the same? And, all right, and so to me, I'm struggling with that, okay? I think combined with the other project, that there's too much. There's too much going in there. And when the city does their zoning, okay, the 25 acres is there for a reason. That's what the city wants developments that come to their city to have, to satisfy what the city feels are their needs and what makes that perfect project that you talk about, okay? Yes, you can go to any agency. We've all been here enough to say that, 146 parking spaces for 146. Well, the experts say that that's all you need. Well, that's not reality. That's not reality, all right? Because you've got that other project right next door. And if they can't afford if they don't have enough parking there, they're gonna start creeping down to your place. That open out lot right behind that building is where they're gonna park. And where are you people gonna park? And then your people are gonna call the Peabody police because those people are parking in our parking spaces. And you're gonna have this management company fighting this management company. I just think there's too many units there. If you just reduced it, maybe they can live in harmony. Maybe if we had enough space for everybody to have a nice parking spot, and there will be no fighting among the neighbors, among anybody. Because I'm telling you, at that number, I'm afraid. Do I think this is a good project? Absolutely. You guys did a great job when we met up here. You answered all the questions. All right? It's just the size thing that I'm really struggling with right now. Thank you.
Well, on a couple of those points, I would, again, going back to the idea of smart growth, I think those EPA guidelines would say adjacent to a similar project that's market rate with the commercial and Route 1, where you have a high traffic area, where you have existing infrastructure. I think this is exactly where they would encourage you to go with that strategy. In terms of the 25 acres, I would suggest that that's an obsolete planning model, that now people are looking to limit suburban sprawl. Would it be better to find 25 acres and do a sprawling community with multiple units and roadways throughout? I think that's 20 years ago, that probably was the way someone would have tried to do a senior community. But now people are saying, no, let's preserve the open spaces that exist in our communities, and let's try to have development occur where there already is development. We're repurposing a former site, helping to facilitate a problematic site in many ways. And then also on the parking, our residents will be in their mid-70s. We know from our experience with this product type.
And I don't want to hear anything about age and people not driving at 70 or 75 or whatever. Do not go down that road.
Well, I think it's...
no.
I think it's only fair, though, that we manage 10,000 units in 7 states, probably 50 properties. And this type project is not for everyone. We're not trying to be everything to everyone. But there is a demographic that needs this type property. Majority of our residents will be single. Majority of them will be female. So people might say, well, I'm in my mid-70s and I'm married. Well, so it's not for everyone. But I think that we can really establish, based on experience with this product type, that this is planned well, that from the city's master planning, that this is a location where this type of development fits well, and our impacts to the surrounding area are limited, and where there are impacts, I think we can appropriately mitigate them. But if it's a smaller project, the reality is it doesn't work. So, but I would try to suggest that some of those concerns are unfounded, but if the reality is that we would have to reduce the units in order to get approved, then the project wouldn't work. But that's where we are.
So I guess I'll piggyback on that. I mean, I think I mentioned this at last meeting. At least, while some of these zoning laws may be old and they may have been around for a while, they still are our zoning laws. There's still, the 25 acres is there for a reason, and I think as a board, we can probably work with that to an extent. I don't want to speak for the others, but my issue is more the minimum density. And we have 15 units per acre for a reason. And this is, as proposed, 2.33 times larger than that. And I think that, to me, is the problem. Now, am I saying that I would cuff you to the 65 units you're allowed to apply by right? No. As you've seen with other small ones whether it's garages or whatever it is, or cabanas, we're willing to work with people within certain things, but to more than double density while using less than 1/5 acreage results in a highly area, regardless of what, with all lighting, no matter how founded it is, the we're working with. So I think I'm increasing top floor, looking at the floor off, come. I want to put words in my mouth, but that might be where it's headed with that. So I think you've heard from that east is too big.
And through the chair, I know my comments at the last meeting were about the density issue, and I remember consideration of the property because that's still eligible for development, the area in the future, and it looks like we're trying to properties right now. We have a lot of development, and I think we've all the amount of.
One point about additional land is our contaminated clean site. So the site was drawn in a way to separate that, so we have a clean contaminated sites and their management and processing. If that wasn't the case, perhaps this site would have, in fact, originally at some point it was somewhat larger, but that really made sense, and from our perspective, it didn't really limit our ability to create a nicely designed site plan and building plan. I think also when you look at what some of the as-of-right alternatives would be, where in terms of what impacts an as-of-right use might have, and the proposed project that was supposed to be one of these self-storage projects, and you've seen them, where they're quite substantial. They're generally lit 24/7 for security reasons. They're accessed 24/7. They get truck traffic and all kinds of traffic into them. So I think with any development, there's always an impact. I think that what we're suggesting in terms of a residential, it fits a very critical need in the community with seniors that I think are not a difficult community in terms of impacts, is a much less impactful use than what an as-of-right use would be visually, noise-wise, and traffic-wise. So I think it's important to put it in context.
So, my turn. Look, there's no doubt you did a fine job, but I do also have to thoroughly agree with the board, and I said it last time. It's like putting a rectangle in a square hole, and that doesn't work. I had other questions or other concerns, such as on the site, on the plan, I don't, and you might not even have to answer it. I don't see where the trash bins are.
They're
I
on
also,
the east side of the site there, down at the bottom, right? So there's a way to take our compactors, we roll compactors out of the garage and, I turned it off. Roll compactors out of the garage and handle it there.
so what's that, like a big garbage truck comes with a,
Yep, it comes in and lifts it and takes it off. So they're inside, outside dumpsters, I think.
okay, so the other thing is, or one of the things was, you had mentioned radio was fine. I need to have Captain Dowling personally some that says the fire trucks have enough turn. Maybe if we go on with this, at the end of it is very unfortunate presented so large. And I have a hard time presenting, saying there's a certain group of people that, yes, of course they're going to be 55 and over. And yes, there is a need to have this in the city. But you can't say that Trammell Crow, who has 180 units, you might have 90 units of people living there that are 55 and over. So I understand the benefits of this, but I also have to agree with the board members that it's very large, and you're asking for a lot in variances that go against the zoning rules. I really don't know what else to say about this to you.
Well, we came here to summarize what had been site visit to get the questions that you're asking, and so that we could get them go and also be able to add to the board concerns what we learn next week. The site visit at with
Something I was going to bring up. You actually met the whole group.
We have not. We proposed a meeting date, and, as I said earlier, that is now scheduled 6 p.m. at the clubhouse at Huntington, 25th.
To the gentleman about your name, that's okay. To pique my little 46 living units. These service units you were talking about, the project that you have, these are going to be part of the building, like a beauty shop, a restaurant. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. Yeah, that's and also the comparison to Trammell Crow compete with residents. Could very well be people living in Trammell Crow, but our residents are looking for something different. We have a high level of service, so we do have a high level of management staff, a very center where we age appropriate teeth type thing, small indoor pool, same size and for them. We have wellness programs. We bring outside providers to come in and do shots, blood pressure testing. Socialization is a lot of residents that people, rather than being isolated in their homes, they want to sell their home and they want to live with similar type people. We have lifelong learning programs, do a lot of educational type programs. We have a media room. Our residents come in and we have speakers that come in. We do courses. We have things like book clubs, and we do raised planters. We'll find a place where they can do gardening. And there are a lot of social activities. So someone might come in the morning for a yoga class. They might come for bridge in the afternoon and then come for a happy hour in the evening. So people are very much engaged. Our community center is probably 3 times the size of what a market rate property could be, because we have all these programs. The whole project is designed to be accessible throughout. They are market rate style units, so there are full kitchens, but they're adaptable and accessible throughout the building, so that even if someone needs to maybe have someone come in and provide some in-home care for a period, the unit can facilitate that. So, and the transportation is also a big part of it. We can take them to scheduled appointments as well as to activities. So that is what our residents are looking for, and that's not everyone. But those are some of the programs that we have.
Okay, thank you, and I think that's great. And all of this activity takes place in the community center, I think. And so there's
That's
not
right.
additional units as part of
No,
the
no, the
building,
units-
like an
No.
exercise center, a beauty parlor, a little, social room where, the guy can come and play the guitar. or
Yeah, those are
something
all,
like that.
yeah, facilities that are part of that overall community
All
center.
right, okay.
That's how that works.
Madam Chairman, can I just make,
So Rick has some information you might.
because that was a good point you brought up, because I don't think we ever, I didn't permit the 40B, so I've never looked at the two projects together in totality, and I think it's worth a look to do that. There's 180 units in the 40B, there's 146 units of this project, which is a total of 326 units. If you add the acreage together, acres in the 40B, there's 4 acres in this site. That calculates an average of 26 units per acre. So if you took your example of taking the top floor off, which would knock the unit down to count down 109 units, which would probably make the project unfeasible, but did that puts us at 25 units per acre. It's only 1 unit off the totality. It really doesn't make a big difference, because you're right, you do have to look at it all together, because it is all together. These use the same access road. Fortunately, they do drain out onto Route 1, which has a much higher capacity than a side street would have. But I think that, even if you knock the floor off, the overall unit count, density per acre, really doesn't change. It changes by 1 unit per acre. Just to try to put it in some perspective.
I agree.
Because it averages out, it washes itself out.
I know. I agree, but I respectfully disagree at the same time, because by that logic, we could look at any lot next door and say, but if we include them, we're going to reduce ours. One thing we have to look at here as well is what happens if we approve it as is. What happens the next time someone comes before us with a 4.5 acre lot with 34 units per acre proposed, and then they say, well, in 2023 you approved that, what's different now? And I understand you can argue, well, this is different than that, but I don't like going down that lane of speculation, what's next door, how you can add. I mean, if we want to go that route, anybody could come before us with their acreage and say, well, if we add up all the acreage of a neighborhood or something, I understand, I appreciate where you went with that, and it does make sense, but I don't think we can look to the lot next door for the purpose of calculation on what the zoning requirements are for your lot.
Rick's point was, though, to try to, because Mr. Osborne had been talking about the totality, we're trying to place a perspective. The other issue is that I think down the road, if somebody comes forward with 4+ acres or even 3+ acres and says, I want to do this, important factors into the fact that I don't feel we set precedents. I think each project is individual, and I think that, for instance, if somebody posed a height on 3 acres and not on Route 1 or 114, that's a huge difference where you go. Other questions? Jeff, do you want to add something?
I think also
Excuse
you
me,
have to look at
Madam
it.
Chair. I can't.
Context, this is a C, though, and the idea is that to promote housing, that some of those type of requirements are facilitated types of housing. So I don't think it would set a precedent, other than perhaps if some CRC or a broad precedent for market rate housing, I don't think it would establish that.
Here we go. Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? Surprise. Anybody to speak in opposition? Okay, just remember, please don't repeat yourself. Name and address for the record, and if you've spoken before, please just add something new. Okay?
Wow, so I was the one that first gave you all the percentage representation. Stanley Greglick. I live at 4503 Deerfield Circle in Huntington Wood. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to start with one of my big ones that might be another setback. Okay. I've looked at the maps very carefully, and there's a number of areas where I see a lot of problems from what was presented new and the challenges that Mr. Osborne started with too. My first one's going to be snow plowing and snow storage. I studied the map, and there's only 2 places I see where you can store snow equivalent to anything near what we had in 2015. And that's in the east corner, southeast corner. This is facing the Newbury Street, and the northeast corner facing Newbury Street. But part of that is the building that has the old pool hall. So you have landscaping in those positions, including, I just learned tonight that you're adding a bunch of trees along the back end facing Huntington, where I think that's where you'd have to store some snow, frankly. And I'm talking lots of snow, because even considering the track around the whole building, there's no other place. You can't remove and take it all out, especially on a busy area like Route 1 and Newbury Street. So I think snow, and that relates to me to be a new setback on the sides. Because if you have to use that area in the southeast corner and in the northeast corner, you have to take away the landscaping, affects some of that footage, and you have to build something that where you can store the snow, the excess snow, because I don't know where else you'd put the rest of it. Because, and also another thing on the map, the outside parking spaces look very, very narrow with an extended, like a curbing, to, you know, for the last cars parked. So that's going to minimize how a plow's going to be able to make bends on that little area.
Can I just react to one of your comments? So the snow removal is a site plan matter. It's not a zoning board matter.
Right. But
So
what I'm
it's a
saying
concern,
is...
it's a concern, but it's not our concern.
I know, but what I'm saying is it would change, they would have to change it to deal with that, and it would be a setback variance in those 2 areas. Not to mention, let me go to the next thing then, too. Just keep that in mind. So I'm confused with the map when they say front, and the offset variances are actually in the back of the building, and the ones that they say back are in the front of the building. So what they're calling something front that's different from what the diagram says. The other thing is there's no identification of street lights and height. That, I don't know if that would affect anything related to that. I'm glad I heard that you're going to have the chief go for the fire truck check, because the map didn't look, if you consider that what I'm talking about with snow and other things, trucks are going to have a real problem there. So one of my next biggest things is the situation of, if you have a fire or you have a flood in this building in any room or multiple rooms, evacuation is going to be different in a high density type like this. They're just for the square acreage using meters, observative meetings, and I haven't seen any that they have stairway at each end, one in the middle, same thing. And in a situation, a problem. Evacuating, Hannah said, people, how many will be, disabled? 4 parking spaces that they had. Huntington Wood, a little more, those pine trees toward. I think we're going to have snow storm. Stormwater is another issue. But I think that's the approach, adding with I just described in snow storage, because there's no know where that is. So can we get back to the, we need an explanation back. I don't have. I meant the they have with me. It's the ones where they showed each picture of the physical building.
So the setbacks are here.
Right. And in here, this is, you're calling this the front and this the back.
Yes. The building department. That came from the building department. They're calling that side the front of our property because our, in part...
Even though the entrance is this over on this side?
Yes. The entrance to the building is unrelated to the frontage under zoning.
The building department did make that determination because it was parallel to the street. The street is Newbury Street. So that's the front. That's why it's the front, because that front is Route 1.
That's an explanation. But that's confusing to a lot of people, I'm sure. Because that would be a conflict on the variances. The other thing that I was concerned about was the trash truck coming through into the building. Those parking spots are very tight. I don't know if there's, and it shows storage on there too. So I'm not sure what the maneuverability of not even just trash trucks, but even service trucks of any kind to help out with that. So that's another issue to be concerned with. Again, the safety, as I mentioned, for the elderly. And I just want to make a comment. I read the what is it called? The Bella Sun program. So Mr. Smetana just explained all that, all those features he needs to have in there, and that covers the cost of why they can't change this type of design. That looks to me, and we'll have to prove it out, a boilerplate sample of some of their services. I didn't see anything in the drawings that shows any configuration that would accommodate a large number of those services in this design. Other than they have the amenity rooms that are limited, and if they're going to have multi-use for that, I would say that would be a concern too. And I hope everything I'm saying is recorded, because I haven't written these down. And I think that's all I can say for now. I want to give some other people a chance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next person, I just want to make 2 comments. Our lot coverage is only 20%. If when we get to site plan review, the that body suggests that we need more area for snow storage. We have quite a bit, and we're not building structures for where snow storage can be. The dust actually beneath the building, where it is, it allows it to roll out the building up by a truck that runs away. So, have Captain Dowling to provide formal response to the plan he's been given.
Anybody else? Brian? 6.
So, Ryan Cox, I live at 11 Hammock Road. You guys obviously touched base. Size of the project's too large. You asked them to come down on the size, they didn't. They still came forward. They still haven't had a meeting. Not going to get into a lot of things, but one thing I'd like to touch on is the acreage. 25 acres is required for 146 units. I'm not sure your name, spoke that they'd only be 1 acre off. If you took 180 units and added 146 units, you would come to 326. That's proposed on 12 acres. If 25 acres are required for 146, 30 acres would be required for 180. There's not 55 acres up there. I don't know where you came up with those numbers. They're wrong. There's not 55 acres. And to say that it's going to be an elderly community, they're not going to impact the city. Yes, they're not going to impact the city with schools, but there's going to be other impacts. It's a 55 plus. 55-year-olds drive. I have a 92-year-old neighbor that still drives. You can't tell me that there aren't going to be cars. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's just, there's a lot of concerns. There's too much. You asked them to come down, they didn't. If they don't want to come down, they cannot do it financially. That's not vote law. And you can't sorry. It's not, you're not going to make, you're the zoning is, you vote on them. And if they're unwilling, end it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Else? Speak? Yes, sir.
Phil Taylor, 44 Deerfield. I neighborhood's concerns, and just a couple quick points about the presentation. When there was a comparison being done to this project and an adjacent project that's a 40B, apples and oranges. The standards that this board has to undertake to review, not even the same. They don't even overlap. Overall, the presentation I hear, my experience, it sounds very much like an application for a special permit, not a variance, addressing many of the things that this board would consider as part of a special permit application. However, they're here seeking a variance from the zoning bylaws that the city enacted. And just to maybe a reminder to the board, that requires 3 findings that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. And when I reviewed the application, I don't see anything in the application to even suggest that there's ever going to be evidence to consider those findings, with the possible exception of it's well established required finding that the first soil shape or topography. The presentations I've heard and the application are absolutely silent as to those issues. They don't talk about what the soil conditions are. They don't talk about the shape of the lot. They don't talk about the topography. Nothing's been presented for this board to consider as with regard to that. And the board is required to make findings as to what's wrong or specifically unique about this lot that's not shared throughout the zoning district generally. What makes this lot special to require a variance from the zoning? Nothing's been presented, with the exception potentially of the lot size. However, the courts in the Commonwealth have already held that that the unusual shape or a lot's unusual shape is unlikely to support the grant of a variance, as well as the lot size, as well as the lot size. They're not unique. Here, the zoning requires 25 acres. They're less than 4.5. This is simply a project that they want, not a project that fits for this property. And throughout this town, this city, and many towns throughout the Commonwealth, that's always the case. There's always someone who wants to do something, but zoning comes in and says, no, this is appropriate on this lot for this size. That's not here. The other issue is the density. The minimum to be 50 units per acre. They're at having to the first required finding. The second required finding of hardship must relate to that first finding. So not the project will be uneconomic if we can't be this big. It can only be a project, and those could be any evidence to submit to the board fit that required finding for someone to come in and say, I want to build something that's too big, too dense as the zoning. 20 acre requirement, shrink it down to 1.5, more than density. And I want you, I really question what's forthcoming. What's required to find look good, I won't address that because I think with the project, once you can satisfy the first two, absolutely meet the. I don't think anyone's housing for the elderly or the services. Fortunately, or how good their project may be to the individual who use it. The town has indicated this is not the place for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a couple of the questions. Space for our Sun, which is the senior umbrella network, about 12,000 square feet of space building. So on the floor and on the second floor, pumping out there, providing the pool and the fitness center. So there's more than enough here for that program. The plans that were distributed, maybe people, but there's about feet of space that's programs. Drive, it's 92-year-old to be out there at 8 in the morning. So we're saying that our residents are off-peak traffic makes less. And I think there are a lot of really thought-out elements of the site plan that would be vetted in the review process. A lot of the questions presented would actually be answered and answered well and in accordance with the city's standard requirements. And I think the final thing that I would say is that, we all know that we have a housing shortage, a significant housing shortage in this country. We have a housing shortage in Massachusetts, certainly in the eastern part of the state. And that I think all of us as community members need to think about how can we be open-minded, how can we be creative about encouraging the type of housing. And I think the thing that we're proposing, I think, is important. We're very community-based. Most of our already live in Peabody. So these folks own homes, so they're going to sell homes, create new home buyers, and they're stay in home community here in Peabody. So we think that's a very important to consider this type of process. The city of, as the state of Massachusetts, really thinks about how do we meet our needs. And if we're looking for ways to approve, then we're never going to meet those challenges. I think it included a lot in terms of a lot of growth strategies, a lot of the providing a type of project really needed here in the city of Peabody. And if it's not here, then the question is then how many developable really are there in the city? Very hard sites, developable sites in Massachusetts. The site became available, and we met with some of the folks initially, and we really would like more development. We would like to have this use. So that those folks are not, but as an acknowledgement, folks would serve our community. There would be an approach to think about, can we mitigate impact efficiently, see that work well for our communities. This project does need to be a certain size in order to be viable, to be smaller. Projects are just so hard to make work now with construction costs and interest rates and all the things that we all know about. So just hope that the board could maybe think about the things that we've presented, and then if there are other questions that people have, we're glad to meet with the neighbors, although I could say we wouldn't be reducing the size, but we're glad to do that. We had originally scheduled to meet with the neighbors. They canceled because some folks weren't available. We followed a couple times to get it rescheduled. So we've been planning to meet with them, and we're glad to meet with them. We'll come to the event and see them 25th, whatever that date is.
Jack, does not have anything to do with anything on this side. Applicant, Circle Store LLC.
With that, we're expecting that the board will continue the matter with the name. Other questions you'd like us to, we understand everybody is onto the issue of revisiting, looking at answer if there are further questions.
Ryan, say one last.
So Ryan Cox, 11 Hammock Road again. I just want to touch base on the last, what the last gentleman said, that they're basically unwilling to go down on 146 units. I just want to make that clear. That's what I heard. I would just like that clarified, that it's 146 units, and that's that.
Thank you. And to that, Carla, could you get in touch with Captain Dowling and get something personal from him? And so, is it the wish of the board to continue this?
Yes, ma'am. I think I think the board was willing to continue this matter, obviously, but I think we've made it abundantly clear size and density is an issue. So if we continue it, I think the idea would be, so we can't force you to do anything, but I think the idea would be to discuss it amongst yourselves, discuss it with the neighbors, and see what you can come up with for a plan. Because Attorney Kelty, I think you've seen our position on this at 146 units. So if we come back on September 11th and it remains 146 units, I think it's going to be a problem for the client.
I understand that. Thank you.
I would move to continue to the next meeting.
Second by Barry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will continue this till September 11th and see where that takes us, if anywhere. Thank you. Number, where are we? Number 6.
Number 6 is an application of Robert Ouellette for for a variance from provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.1.5, accessory structures, as it applies to the premise known as 7 Tracy Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance for a detached garage, requires relief from accessory structure size where 500 square feet is allowed and 776 is proposed. The property is under BC zoning district.
You have to take your,
My name is Bob Willett, and I'm here representing Mr. Picanto. We're proposing to build a two-car garage, 24 by 24, which exceeds the 500 square foot limit a little bit. And there are a couple sheds involved in that square footage issue. The garage is going to have open trusses up above for storage. The majority of that stuff is going to end up there. You know, there's a couple snow blowers in the shed that'll end up in the garage. And the purpose of the garage is, if you know Tracy Street, street parking is not the best. And he has a narrow driveway, so it's trying to move, him and the wife's car trying to move back and forth is kind of getting to be a pain.
So I see that there's 2 other accessory structures out there. There's 2 sheds. Are they both gonna remain?
Those 2 sheds, and that comes into the square footage thing, but there's going to be storage above the garage. So the majority of that stuff is going to go into the garage, and those those sheds are going to disappear at some point when it's
okay,
done.
so you're going to get rid of 1 shed or 2?
It's probably going to get rid of both of them.
Okay, so it can't be, you have to get rid of at least 1, not probably. We don't like probablys, maybes, or perhaps. So in order for this to even be considered, you have to get rid of at least 1 shed. Definitely.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll get shut down.
I know how it works.
Okay.
Danny will be on my case.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve with the condition that 1 of the 2 sheds on the property must be removed.
Second.
Roll call vote. Perhaps you might want to take down the shed that's closest to the house. Roll call vote. Shed number 2. Okay, let's condition that it's shed number 2 on your plan. We'll take that down. That'll be on the condition.
Because actually, I think that was already in violation because it's too close to them.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll reword the motion. That's okay. So it's a motion to approve with the condition that shed number 2, as identified on the May 2nd, 2023 plan, will be removed.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, you're all set. You've been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
2. Next one, number 7.
Number 7 on tonight's agenda is the application of Stephen and Jody Ditchfield for a variance from the provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.2, dimensional controls, as it applies to the premise known as 242 Lynn Street in Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance to build a Fala addition and requires relief from lot coverage where 30% is allowed and 30.6 is proposed. Left side yard where 15 is required and 4 is proposed. Rear yard where 35 is required and 7.4 is proposed. The property is in an R1A zoning district.
Hi, my name is Steve Ditchfield, my wife Jody. Reason for our request of the Fowler addition is 2 years ago, my mother-in-law had a stroke. They live in a second-floor apartment. It's difficult with the stairs. My father-in-law also is recuperating from cancer. I've been a Peabody resident for a little over 26 years. I've raised my family here. I'd rather not move. My wife and I thought this would be, the Fowler would be able to care for my in-laws a lot easier. That's it.
There's a lot going on here in this. There's a lot going on here. So you're going to take away a garage?
Correct. And that's going to be a new
That's going to be what?
part of the file. And then continue on.
We're going to tear down the garage
Yep.
and reuse
Yep.
it, repurpose it.
Did you ever think of just going straight out from the back of your house?
That is on the plot plan, yes. We're coming out from the kitchen and going right to the back of the fala. And that's going to be like, the entrance will be from the backyard and to the left to the fala, right into our kitchen.
There's a deck there right now that we're going to use to extend our kitchen so that it can connect into the fala.
Right, so it's connected.
I'll ask for the audience.
Audience, anybody to speak in favor? In opposition? Yes, come on up.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Chris Conley. I live at 15 Bachelor. So this is my wife, Barbara. So our properties abut to my yard is directly right where his yard is. So they're asking to put a structure in their backyard 8 feet from our property. Now, it's a real privacy issue for us. I also want to say that I'm uncomfortable being here, but this is important to me, so that's why I'm here. We also live in between 2 ponds, Spring Pond and Browns Pond. And when we get water, which we get, the water has somewhere it has to go. So that you put a structure 21 feet closer to my house, it's definitely going to affect my water table. It's going to be more of a problem than it is now, which in fact will hurt my property value as well.
This is 34 feet across and block our entire yard. Plus we'll get the roof overhang as well. And the roof overhang will also drop snow down. The care between the fences will become an issue. The view of the pond will be blocked because that is a selling point on our house. I'm also a licensed residential real estate agent in Mass. I understand property. I understand the value, how it's going to hurt us. They'll add their value. We will detract from our value. It's also going to be the flooding issue, the privacy issue. We're in a surface water district. It's already bad enough. We get flooded, it's going to be so much worse. We definitely oppose this. It's non-conforming. It does not go along with the neighborhood. We're going to be looking out at a boxed-in yard. It's so detracting. There's no peaceful to take your family outside and enjoy it. It'll be right on top of us.
Okay, thank you.
And we are lifelong residents as well. I grew up in the house. And they also already have a variance of 960 square feet that got put up in 12 that my mother wasn't happy about, but she didn't oppose it, and I went along with her. And for this to be going on, they already have a huge addition. Why not use the bottom part of that for their fala? Because the fala is only temporary anyway. They have to discontinue it once the person is not there anymore.
So to the applicant, when I said, why can't you come out to the back of your house, I meant that. Just add on to the back of your house. You don't really go.
No,
Yeah, just.
that's a bulk.
You have to, Mike.
For water, we're not a base, but the addition off to the basement, there's no more flooding. I don't think that.
Well, any, interrupt you, any sort about, wouldn't you?
The flow of water.
Point about the view, our stories, so it blocks their liver of what they in the existing garage, the same addition, you know, as far as a hindering.
An ability for you to kind of go back to the drawing board and see it a little bit further setback.
Would we already where this?
But the garage housing, it's, yeah, so the privacy is the back of the house. I mean, there's room, and we want to grant something, but
No, I have to agree with the neighbors on this one. It does, if I were you, I'd try to go back to the drawing board and try to recreate something else that's not, the variance isn't so large and that you're not so close to the property line.
Is there a recommendation that you have that we would have to adhere to?
I think what the chair was saying before is coming more directly off the back of the house.
Just as far as the deck?
Yeah, with the width. Well, no, probably, you know, I'm not going to give you exact proportions, but if you maybe made it this way instead of coming this way, somehow.
Okay, and leaving the existing garage as a garage?
I mean,
You could still tear down the garage and do that, so, I mean, that's there.
I mean, it's one of those tough situations where you have what's for greater good versus what's allowable and trying to compromise with everybody. And we've seen a lot of the filers come before us, and typically I think what Keith was saying and Fran was saying is that a lot of times we see them come directly off the home, so they'll blow out the back, let's say room or something, and they'll blow the back off and put it, no, I don't know what rooms are situated where you mentioned a bulkhead somewhere in there, but we don't often see it come off in like a T like this, where you have a causeway, walkway, whatever you want to call it, that common area, then lead to the next residence. And I think that might be just aesthetically and location-wise might be hanging us up a little bit. Whereas if this came more directly off the back, and again, I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't tell you how to do it.
The back is, we were extending the kitchen, so it would still be an extension of our house?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Part of the existing house.
Right.
Yep.
And this is, even though it's part of the existing house, it's skirting it because you're allowing this little causeway to create a secondary residence in the back, as opposed to just bumping out the back of the house, whatever, X amount of feet, and creating a separate addition all like boxed off the back. Again, without being an engineer, I can't tell you how to do it or give you advice on what to do. I'm saying it's just a little less traditional to come off in that T shape off the back.
Okay. Okay.
You want to continue this till the September and think about a different aspect? Okay, you have to say that.
Yes, yes, thank you. Oh, we would like to request a continuance.
So moved for continuance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so we'll see you September 11th. Thank you. Number 8.
Number 8 on tonight's agenda is the application of Michael Tufo, for a variance from the provisions of the zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.2, dimensional controls as it applies to the premise known as 25 Elmwood Circle in Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance for addition and requires relief from yard setback corner where 25 feet is required and 6.4 feet is proposed. Lot coverage where 25% is allowed and 26.1 is proposed. Property is in an R1 zoning district.
Are we here? Oh.
Hello, Michael Tufo. Okay. 25 Elmwood Circle. I'm here seeking a variance for an addition on my corner lot. It would be a living room and 2 bedrooms on top. We've been there for about 6 years now, and the house has needs up until 4 when we had our first child. And 2, we've definitely outgrown, so the addition would be to them extra living space, because right now we both work from home to find working space with toys and clothes everywhere. Yeah, again, it allow us to live more comfortably and stay in the house a lot longer, which and I just stay put, do it for us. So.
So through the chair, it looks like obviously it's a corner lot and the
Yes.
addition's going to be facing the corner. And I also do notice from the map that just about every other residence has done this.
Hey, you're lucky you're on a corner.
I know, I am.
I just have one question. Is the height of the addition going to be the same height as your house?
Yes, it will be. It will not be bigger than the current house.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Number 9, John Avila.
Number 9 on tonight's agenda is an application of John Avila for a variance from the provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.2, dimensional controls, as it applies to the premise known as 6 Alden Road in Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance to convert an open deck into a sunroom and requires relief from rear yard where 35 feet is required and 30.7 is proposed. Properties in an R1A zoning district.
Are you, oh yeah.
Good evening. Thank you. John Avila, 6 Alden Road in Peabody, and we seek a variance to convert our open deck into a sunroom, our 3-season room, just for additional living space.
That's on the direct footprint that already exists?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Questions, concerns? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Second. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, you're all set.
Thank you.
Number 10.
Number 10 on tonight's agenda is an application of Michael Moran for a variance from the provisions zoning ordinance 2020 as amended. Section 7.2, dimensional controls, as it applies to the premise known as 15 Cedar Grove Ave in Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance to build an open deck and requires relief from right yard setback where 15 feet is required and 10 is proposed. Property is located in an R1A zoning district.
Hi, Michael Moran. I live at 15 Cedar Grove Ave, and I am requesting relief for a variance for the right side of my property. There was an existing walkway going up to my doorway that is already encroaching upon my neighbors, which I didn't know about, and I'm trying to build a deck off of that in the same line.
To your neighbors about this?
Yep.
Anybody to speak in favor? How about opposition? Matters before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes, you're all set. You've been
Thank
approved.
you.
You're welcome. Now we have number 11.
Number 11 is an application of John and Svetlana Malachi, care of attorney John Kelty, for a variance from the provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.1.5, accessory structures, as applies to the premise known as 5 Tanners Ridge Road, Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance to build pool cabana and storage shed, requires relief from pool cabana size where 747 is proposed and 120 is allowed. Pool cabana side setback where 10 feet is proposed and 5 feet, about 10 feet is allowed and 5 feet is proposed. Storage shed setback where 10 feet is required and 5 feet is proposed. The property is in an R1 zoning district.
Thank you. For the record, my name is John Kelty. I have offices 40 Lowell Street in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I represent John D. and Svetlana Malachi, who are the owner of properties at 5 Tanners Ridge Road. As you may recall, this was before you as a much larger version of a cabana. We have reduced the size of the cabana tremendously, and we now appear before you seeking a cabana size of 187 square feet. I think the ad you read 700, and yeah, that was the old. Yeah. So we're now seeking 187 square feet, and that would be 5 feet from the side yard. We are also proposing a shed, which is of the required size. No relief is required for the shed. However, we would like to move that 5 feet from the sideline so that it is a constant side yard to our neighbor to that side, who has already supplied a letter to this board saying that that neighbor had no objection. As I related at our prior meeting, no neighbor in the neighborhood has any objection, and we have spoken to our neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. We are seeking approval of your variance, of our variance for 5-foot side yard. By way of additional information, there shows on the plan, and there is a significant easement for drainage across the rear of the property, which is a significant part of the reason that we are proposing some of these things on our side of the property versus dead back lot line. With that, I'm happy to answer questions. Mr. Malachi is here this evening if you have any questions for him, and we're happy to move forward.
Through the chair, it does seem like the petitioner had taken our indications to heart, so.
I agree. The only thing that I would like is a as-built plan to be given before the permit is closed out. Yeah.
After we complete it?
Yeah.
Okay, not this permit.
No.
Yeah,
When
that's
it's done,
fine.
We can condition that. Question?
Just for the board's consideration, I would feel more comfortable approving if these buildings remain separate buildings, a condition of a shed and a cabana. That's it. Not 3 months from now we're back here and we want to connect these two buildings and we're back to this large project like we had before. So I would ask for a condition that they remain 2 separate buildings.
Yeah, you can put a condition on it. That's
Anybody to speak in favor? In opposition? Matters before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve with 2 conditions. The first condition being that an as-built plan will be provided at the conclusion of construction. And the second condition that the storage shed and pool cabana remain separate and are not connected at some point in the future by another structure or some other construction.
Second?
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. You're all set? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have the continued application of Tanright Residences. Before that, I need a motion to accept correspondence 6/12/23, Panos extension request, 7/11/23, Hayes response to peer review, 6/23, revised. I need a motion to accept.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Recess, and I mean minutes. Okay, we're ready.
My name's Jason Panos, for the record, practicing law at 246 Andover Street. I represent the applicant Tanright Residences, LLC, and I'm accompanied by its principal, Nick Ambiliotis, and our project engineer, Tony Capichetti. We originally opened this hearing on June 1st, and I'm happy to say that we've pretty much resolved all of the outstanding peer review issues. And I'll run through them very briefly. It's late, it's hot, and I'll be short. So when we opened the hearing back in June of last year, we promised a transformative project that was going to enhance the pedestrian feel of the downtown. It was going to tick all of the boxes that the city wanted from a development standpoint, with regard to creating a vibrant downtown, improving walkability, improving, as I said, that pedestrian experience for all, and reinforce context-accessible development, and strengthen that park once concept, which is you park in a place and you walk everywhere else. We're literally about a 7-minute walk from the downtown. We think that this 132 unit project will be will enhance the economic vibrance of the downtown. We said from the very beginning that we thought the most transformative aspect of this proposal was how we manage stormwater, and without any surprise, the majority and bulk and intensity of the peer review focused on flood mitigation and stormwater. And we'll get into where we landed on that in a moment. And the other subservient issue were traffic flows. This proposal improves traffic flows, particularly along the Walnut Street corridor. And the improvements don't only apply to this development, but are also for the benefit of the adjacent and abutting commercial uses. So through a very long peer review process, we met with Bob Langley on May 31st. When we met with him, there were 15 outstanding peer review issues with regard to stormwater, sewer, traffic, and water. We had subsequent meetings with traffic, sewer, and water peer reviewers, and stormwater peer review throughout the month of June, and we narrowed those 15 issues down to 2. And I can say tonight that we have also addressed to the satisfaction of the city those 2 outstanding issues, which are with regard to traffic signal improvements, but not just traffic signal improvements. Again, creating enhancements to the pedestrian experience and making that intersection of Wallace and Walnut Street more accessible to ADA, to folks requiring ADA improvements. And so we are going to, again, when I said pedestrian improvements for all, we're making that section, that corridor, easier to access than the current condition. And then there were water system improvements. Again, the peer review resulted in a very good fix that addresses an ongoing concern that the city has had with regard to impact on water infrastructure, and also helps us out. So it was a win-win for all. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Tony Capichetti from Hayes Engineering, so that he can kind of walk you through some of the technical improvements related to those 2 issues, and then I'll wrap up by going through the propose substantive conditions, and then we'll conclude and hopefully suggest that we can close the hearing tonight. Thank you. Tony?
Thank you. Tony Capichetti, Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts, for the record. So the traffic signal improvements that were asked by the traffic consultant, WorldTech, now Ty and Bond, were for ADA improvements on the pedestrian walkways, pedestrian hand signals, as well as a couple of the signal lights are missing the reflective, I guess, border around them, and then installation of the fins that they stop you from being able to see the signal from the opposing or perpendicular intersection. So we priced that out. It came to about $15,000, and in going back and forth, we talked to the city about doing it and came up with a cap of $25,000 to do the work to try and be fair on getting that done, because you never know what you're going to get into when you open these. But we felt it shouldn't fully be borne on us, but almost doubling the cost we thought was a reasonable compromise, and Bob Langley did as well. Bob's been very communicative through the whole process, been great to work with. And then the water system improvements, talking to Weston and Sampson, there's an old 6-inch that runs on Upton Street around us. And originally we looked at either replacing or cleaning and lining, and the issue is we have a lot of industrial users that abut us, that taking them out of service, especially Nutra, which is the new food service packaging facility, or causing rusty waters, we didn't think was the best way to handle it. And understanding when Weston and Sampson was coming from with those industries, the increased flows from our site would start pulling more water through that 6-inch, which would also cause rusty water. So what we've proposed as a compromise is running an 8-inch main from the 12-inch in Walnut Street through our site in an easement that would be given to the city for maintenance, and then triple gating both of those connections. And what that'll do is our services will come off the new 8-inch, so it won't increase the velocities in the 6 and cause dirty water. And then in the future, if that area continues to expand, you'll still be able to feed portions, the left and right-hand side of the water main, and keep those industrial users in business. And that's that blue line on the plan is the right here is the new water main. That'll allow us to, when this is taken out of service, feed back this direction, and then when this is taken out of service at some time in the future, to feed around in the opposite direction. So we can keep those industrial users up and running without having to lay bypass. Some of the what was that? Okay, I'll let Jason go from here.
So to recap, you'll recall the project proposed started out at 160 units. The application before you was at 140 units. We subsequently reduced that to 132 units. So that will be a condition that will make it into the decision. Again, I'm doing a summary. I'm not doing the typical conditions. Development will be constructed in substantial accordance with the plans that were submitted to Bob Langley and this board on July 11th of this year. The applicant is providing pervious sidewalks within the site and reconstructing sidewalks and curbing along the property frontages, again enhancing that pedestrian experience. The applicant will provide an LSP to monitor earthwork at the property. The applicant will pay the inflow and infiltration fee of $235,400 as a result of the output that they're putting into the sewer system according to their the city's standard formula. Again, we talked about the ADA traffic signal upgrade. There will be a redundant water main that Tony just talked about. We will file a notice of intent application with the Peabody Conservation Commission for work done in the resource area. And engineering submission and conditions and timelines will also be proposed at that time, and will become a part of the decision we propose. So with that, we have worked diligently over the past year with the city to reconcile all the outstanding peer review issues. The city engineer has received all the necessary information and is generally satisfied with the outstanding issues that have been addressed. We believe the ZBA is ready to close the hearing and begin discussions on its decision and perhaps schedule its working session at its next hearing, at your next hearing on September 11th. With that, I'll take any questions.
Well, I think that this was done thoroughly and accurately, and you took everything into consideration, and you worked diligently, and I'm happy with this, and I'm sure the rest of the board is happy with this, but we're not going to close it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yes, it would be the right thing to do, and I would make everybody very happy if we closed the public hearing this evening.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so now you on September 11th with a decision will be read with Damon Segelson, who usually does at this point in time. And at that point, you should be all set September 11th. Are you okay?
I am great. Appreciate diligence and forth, particularly with the city that's this, as you know, started well before our hearing opening on June of last year. We actually probably started talking about this with the city in January of 2022, and we want to thank the city and this board for its consideration and diligence.
And
Thank
you are
you.
entirely welcome.
Thank you.
You're going to be here. You're not going to say.
I'll be here on September 11th, I can promise you that. And any time before that you need me. Thank you.
Okay. And our last one for this evening is the continued application of 41 Newbury Street. And we need to accept these correspondences. On May 2nd, 23, Lucia Del Nigro Conservation Memo, 6/2/23 and 6/13/23, Bob Langley DPS Memos, 7/3/23, Horsley Witten Stormwater Peer Review Memo, 7/7/23, Bob Langley Stormwater Memo, 7/7/23, Bob Langley Traffic Memo, 7/7/23, Ty and Bond Traffic Peer Review, 7/11/23, Stacy Burnson Affordability Memo, and 7/11/23, Tom St. Pierre Memo.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are ready. We are ready to hear this.
Good evening, Madam Jonathan Silverstein, here on behalf of the applicant. Remind the board we are granted permit for a mixed-use residential with floor commercial, and we do have the project architect here with boards to show the board. We weren't able to do that last time, the elevations of the project. We have received peer review for both stormwater and for traffic. I'm pleased to say that the peer review comments were all, relatively straightforward. Just about all of it is just seeking clarification on some plan details, additions to plans. We do need to provide written responses to those, and we'll certainly be able to do that in advance of the board's September 11 meeting, and hopefully sufficiently in advance for the peer reviewers to provide further comments back and confirm that their comments have been addressed adequately. I guess a couple of comments that the board has received that I want to address briefly. I guess as a preliminary matter, one of the waivers we requested was, or a few of the waivers we requested were from submittal requirements. A couple of those I think have fallen by the wayside, specifically with respect to application fees. But one of them was a request not to have to conduct a phase one environmental analysis for the property. Given the fact that this is a property that is right on Route 1 and is not going to have any ground level usable open space, has hotel and residential developments literally next door, and given the cost of doing a phase one, I would ask if the board is willing to vote on that waiver tonight. Because if we don't get the waiver, obviously we'll have to do the we'll have to do the phase one, but it is a fairly significant cost item, and the margins on these projects, which were never great with current interest rates and construction costs, are even more significant. And to require that, particularly to require it as an upfront cost item, we would ask that the board waive that, since there's really not much to be done about it.
I don't think that's something, Carla, do we vote on that?
It's not something that we've done before.
And I'm not comfortable with that. So you'll have to take that up with Bob Langley or the building commissioner, but it's not something that we do.
So,
and we're not going to.
Okay. I mean, I guess the only thing I'll say, and I appreciate that, this is only a requirement of the board's regulations. It's not a requirement anywhere other than the board's regulations. It's not a requirement of state law. It's not in any ordinance. It's the regulations this board adopted, so no one else would have the authority to make that decision. Only this board would have that authority. I'm certainly happy, and maybe if I speak with Mr. Langley, to ask him to make a recommendation to the board. Does that make more sense?
Right. Just through the chair, we don't have any information to go on as to why the city would require that and why they wanted it and what it is and what we'd be giving up by voting on something like that tonight. I just wouldn't be comfortable doing that. So with a recommendation from the people who we depend on, the city engineer, I think I would be satisfied if that would happen, yeah.
Fair enough. I'll take that up with Mr. Langley, and hopefully we can bring that back at the September 11 meeting. Great. The other point I wanted to make was with respect to the site distance. One of the comments from the traffic peer reviewer had to do with site distance at Hotel Ave. That's obviously a property over which we have no control. And the issue is that if you measure 14 feet back from the paved roadway, there's some vegetation there that is on, and we'll provide written comments on all this. I just wanted to give the board a little bit of a heads up on it. There are some arborvitae that on the hotel property that have been planted, I guess, to screen a couple of parking spaces there. But of course, no one parks 14 feet back or stops 14 feet back before making that left turn. They're going to pull up to the traveled way. And actually, the traveled way is even further forward because there's that striped area where it narrows down to one way. So there really isn't, if board members want to go out there and take a look, when you actually pull up there and look to the right before making that left turn, there's no sight distance issue. It's straight as as straight as it comes. But if you strictly speaking look 14 feet back, which is the typical AASHTO requirement from the layout, then that vegetation is in the way. But again, we have no ability to control someone else, the hotel's vegetation, and it's a practical impediment to seeing. So I want to the board's attention, so you are aware, provide responses at all. Other than that, I think it makes sense. We have, as I said, we have the architect, Jacob Levine here, our traffic reviewer, traffic expert who his traffic. I think, unless the board has any questions before I go over to them. Perfect. Thanks.
Evening. My name is Jacob Levine, Street, Salem, Mass. From I'm the architect. It's only fancy. So, site that's been happening there. So this is a 5 floor residential and 1 floor of commercial. We have mostly underground parking with some surface parking as well, at 1.5 spaces per unit. The owner who's sitting in here built right next door at 41 Newberry Street, literally like the building next door. It's a design center. It's a beautiful building. The landscape is gorgeous, and I have no doubt that this one would be the same. Kind of matching some of the character of the buildings that's gone up in that area, but a little bit higher quality on materials, looking at fiber cement, potentially some composite wood and stone. So we have 60, like I said, of 2 bedrooms, 6 units of 3, and of 20 1 bedrooms. They're all large size units, 1 bedroom. Bedrooms are 1,000 square feet, go up some down. With my 3 bedrooms, kind of on 14. Everybody gets a balcony, access, and fresh. It's kind of a single sides, hammered with 2 egress stairs. On the one of the highlights of this project is the neighboring project as much. Of this amenity center we're trying to create on the roof. It's going to be a roof deck that any of the can occupy, sun covered. In these ranks here, 65 feet tall, pretty much neighboring. It's at those hill. We're actually down the highway, so I think the side faces. So you guys have a view. Pond in the back. These guys obviously look towards Peter's nice building right next to Sonic. That's about it for our any direct. Absolutely.
So, what times we get buildings like rented in like phases, phase 1, phase 2. You don't have building the whole thing right.
Correct.
It could be disrespectful, right? I'm not going. All at once. Okay.
Need housing.
Project.
Thank you.
Just to the on the and underground.
So the site has an added to it. So essentially, the way we have in the floor below this, which would be underground, it's not level plans, but I'm presenting the architect. Pull out on the building. So again, roof down here. So you come in, around and out. The whole floor plate is parking below grade, and the surface parking for the retail visitors. Retail on the first floor with a nice lobby in the middle.
Did you give us any breakdown of parking spaces and things like that?
Yes. All right, so we have 89 residential spaces. That's 1.5 per unit, 52 below grade, and then I have 16 commercial spaces, 4 handicap, and 2 EV charging stations in the garage, with 4 additional charging stations above grade. So I'll hit you that again, 89 residential spots, 16 commercial spots, 52 below grade. And not that you guys really get into it, but with the new kind of sustainability laws, we're trying to make this building as green as possible. That's kind of what we're trying to do with that roof deck, with some of the landscaping, some of the higher grade materials, better glazing, better R values in the walls, solar panels on the roof, all electric.
I don't know, but do we have what you just said about the parking space and everything else, and do we have that? Not bring that.
Yeah, dimension, kind of see it. So I'm long, and then I'm about 195 the south, and it sits on 1.02 acres. So it's a pretty compact plan, but it works really well. Any questions? Cool, guys.
Yeah, some point.
We can't accept it, sir. But you can give it all to Carla.
Sorry, this is nothing new. This is just an excerpt of what you already have to make it easier to call your attention, so you don't have to dig through everything.
You can give it to Carla, and she'll give it to us. We just
Okay.
don't accept it like that.
Fair enough.
And your name and address?
Ken Cram, Bayside Engineering, 600 Unicorn Park Drive, Woburn. And I will be brief in light of the fact that we're all sweating to death. And some of us are comfortable. We did the traffic impact and access study for the project, 41 Newbury Street. Overall, outside the study area, depending on how you're approaching it, 4 to 15 additional peak hour vehicles are projected. Motorists exiting the site will not experience delays. Our primary driveway is right out to Newbury Street itself. It's a right turn in, right turn out situation, but there is access through the rear of the hotel property to Hotel Avenue, whereupon you can get up to the jug handle and make a U-turn. Similarly, traffic that's coming from the north will be coming, you'll have to do a circuit route and come in from the sides, but overall, the study area that we had that was assessed by the peer reviewer and deemed adequate indicated that that was a good study area. And our sight lines are very good, both at the driveway and out to Newbury Street. The one exception, as Attorney Silverstein referenced, was the arborvitae's blocking the sight line, which is an existing situation right now on the hotel property. But it's important to note that while he raised it as a concern, and we will address it in our peer review response, No crashes were reported over the last 6 years at that intersection. So I don't think it's really, we have methodologies we have to use when we assess site distances, but the reality is when, the AASHTO manual says you have to be 14 and a half feet back, in reality, cars are more likely 9 or 10 feet back where the driver's eye is, so it's something different. So we did the traffic impact study. We assessed traffic. We went out 7 years. We followed state guidelines. We projected new trips for the project. And the overall project is projected to generate about 450 trips. Cut that in half for the total number of cars in and out, 225 over the course of a typical day, with 33 trips in the morning peak hour and 44 in the weekday evening peak hour. For the commercial component, no tenants have been identified at this time, but through some discussions, we said, okay, let's be a little conservative. We had medical office space and retail as potential tenants, but no tenants have been identified yet, but it'll be in the range of 11 to 20, give or take, peak hour trips for those components. We already talked about that. In the peer review, besides the site distances and the parking waiver, they commented on the recommendations that we had in the traffic study and what was shown on the plans, and that's basically, fix your eye, dot your I's, cross your T type thing, which we will take care of well in advance of the next hearing, which is scheduled for September 11th. As part of our mitigation, we will also have a transportation demand management program. The site will have a transportation coordinator who will work with the residents, try and find them carpooling opportunities, let them know of any, there's not immediate transit, but ways to promote those ride sharing. We'll have bicycle racks, new sidewalks throughout the site connecting to the sidewalk system that's on Newbury Street. And one of the comments was to make sure that all the pavement markings are for the crosswalks are clear. And that's basically a quick summary of the traffic study. And I'll try and answer any questions if you have any. All right, thank you.
So that's traffic in a nutshell. We do have the project engineer here if the board has any questions. Make sure to get you respond out insufficient that hopefully the next hearing session what would this all up on the screens. It's easier to follow as we go through these features. But if the board has any questions, or happy to continuance to September 11.
A motion to continue this matter to the next meeting.
Second.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. I need a motion to accept the June minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. We're done. We'll see you September 11th.
You know what?